Everyone into the Zoom call. We're so excited for our Tuesday talk today. I'm Anna Hovey, Director of Business Development and Special Events here at the Chamber, and we appreciate you starting your Tuesday with us this morning. Before we get started, I just want to say a few quick words of appreciation. We do appreciate Mid-South Bank making this event today possible. And Clay Lane, who is the Lee County Market President, is going to say a few words at the end of our presentation today. But we do appreciate them so much and their investment in the Chamber. Also, to each of you who joined us today, we are so thankful that you would take the time to be a part of this, and hope to encourage you to continue looking out for our events that we will have virtually for the rest of the year, or maybe some in person as time progresses. But just a matter of housekeeping, we will have you all on mute during the presentation, so Peyton is monitoring that as we go. Also, it might be helpful for each of you to turn your view to speaker view, which at the top right corner, you can make that choice and it'll just make it easier to see our guests from the hospital as they are speaking to us today. And without further ado, I want to say so many words of appreciation. They are inadequate, really, to thank our presenters who are with us today, especially for your time, but more importantly, the work that you're doing for our community. And we are indebted to you for that work, and we appreciate that so much. And we appreciate you giving us your time and insight today. We have Laura Grill, President and CEO, who is with us today. You may also, I know that they have their mask on, they're following protocol as they are directing us. They're doing as they say as well, but you might also notice Dr. Ricardo Maldonado, who is the infectious disease specialist. He's with us and going to say a few words to us shortly. And last but not least, we have Brooke Bailey, who is Director of Infection Prevention, also at East Alabama Medical Center. So thank each of you for being here. I don't want to take any more time away from you, and so we're going to turn it over to you, and I'll kind of close it out at the end, and we'll give Clay a few minutes to speak at the end as well. So Laura, thank you so much, and we'll turn it to you.
Thank you, Anna, and members of the Chamber. I also want to thank Clay Lane and Mid-South Bank for hosting this, along with the Chamber. And first of all, let me just say, on behalf of East Alabama Medical Center, Opelika, East Alabama, Lanier, all our facilities, we're just so thankful for the support we've gotten from the community and from everyone, from just all the prayer, support, food, caring for our staff as we care for the patients in the community. So we really felt that support. We are wearing our masks because we are not socially distanced. Otherwise, we would take it off, and I'm assuming you can hear me okay. We've gotten used to talking in these aggravating things. So, you know, as I'm going to really turn it over this morning to our two experts, Dr. Maldonado and Brooke, but wanted to talk about, you know, when this started. It's hard to believe this is August the 11th. You know, it seems like we just woke up and it's already August. We started this planning for COVID and its effects here back in January, watching the news. Our infection prevention department were just sort of watching events happen and unfold. And, you know, we were coordinating with Dr. Cam and the university and the community, talking about all the things that to expect and how it could impact our organization. And as you remember, really, we had our first case back in early March, and then began to ramp up from that. We've since seen a ramp down, then a ramp back up. And we were just talking about, you know, sort of here we go again. So this is with us to stay for a while. I think our organization has done a good job. We've tried to, we sort of talk about living in two worlds, right? So we're living in the COVID world where we're treating patients who are very sick with COVID-19, and then we're also trying to run normal operations because people still have heart attacks and have babies and have accidents and need care. And so really trying to live in those two hybrid worlds right now for the foreseeable future. So I thank you for your time today and all your community support. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Maldonado and Brooke to really talk about what we have happening here and what we're seeing in our hospital, if that's okay. So I'm going to need, this is my technical support here.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Ricardo Maldonado, infectious disease specialist. I'm going to just kind of briefly talk a little bit about what life has been for me as an ID specialist, a little bit of the timeline since all this started. To me, this started on the December 31st, 2019. It was a Tuesday. I was in my office when I was going through my journals, and on December 31st, it was the first time that an article was published on a very popular medical journal called New England Journal of Medicine, which I'm subscribed to. Obviously, I guess most physicians are subscribed to this very popular journal. And they talk about this novel virus that was going on in Wuhan, China. Of course, being an article about my specialty, I read the article of that very same day, and it caught my attention. We didn't know then whether this virus was able to transmit from human to human, but it didn't take too long to find out that it did. It was probably after the first week of January that we identified, or they identified the virus. They put a name on, and it was confirmed that this was human to human transmission. At that moment, that's when I started my spring race. We already knew that what was the potential consequences of a pandemic of these proportions, and honestly, that's exactly what we saw. It probably was mid-January when we started getting together with Brooke Bailey and Dr. Camp from Auburn University Medical Clinic, and preparing for what we suspected it was going to happen to our community, especially being having a lot of diversity, having the university and a lot of international companies, some of them from South Korea. So the potential was there. So our job back then was to prepare for that the best we could. It was interesting how public got this news of this potential outbreak that was going on in China that had potential pandemic consequences. Because back in February, if you went to a grocery store, you couldn't find toilet paper, you couldn't find hand sanitizers, and everything was, even though we didn't have a single case in our community that we knew of, people were reacting to the news that this thing was coming, was on its way, and it was. Back then, later on, we had our first case back in March, expectedly. We probably saw a few cases that came to the ER, and we were not even able to diagnose these cases because we didn't have any tests available. The tests that were available were you had to go to the CDC, and of course back then there was this belief that patients with no symptoms weren't able to transmit the infection. So we, because of the limitation of diagnostics, we were not able to diagnose the first cases quick enough. But eventually we did, and after that was you know the story. I have to say this. What struck me the most during all this pandemic is the inability to do my job effectively because of different things. Like, for instance, the politicization of the topic has been, to me, it's been very hard for us to basically fight two battles. U.S., it's not that they didn't do a good job, but they didn't know. We didn't know. We have learned a lot about this virus in the last 8 months. However, we're still learning. And you have to understand something. When we talk about the flu, we have studied the flu for decades. When we talk about herpes virus, we have studied this virus for decades. We have a ton of experience with these viruses, and we still are not able to save everybody that comes with a viral infection that we're familiar with for decades. Imagine this with a novel virus that we basically don't know much about. You also have to understand that when we do studies to learn about viruses, to collect the data and have that article reviewed by peers and being approved, that process takes months, takes sometimes 6 months to put an article, a study together. So we're 8 months in, and we're still learning. We're working really, really hard to learn about this virus, but it is very difficult. We have learned a lot, and there's a lot more to learn. And hopefully, the results of some of the studies will be coming up, hopefully by the end of the year and probably early next year. So we're still learning a lot about this virus. And that was the main challenge at the very beginning. If you maybe compare the way we dealt with this back in March and the way we deal now, is because we know more now than then, but we will know more about the end of the year or next year than we already know now. So just a couple of things about viral infections. I always hear this from public. It's just a virus. It's just a virus. Don't worry. It's just write it out. It's just a virus. And it's very common. And people are right when they say that, because more viruses are like that. Even, I would say, even more respiratory viruses are like that. They are mild. They cause mild infections. They are incapable of cause a lot of inflammation. That's why a lot of viral infections are very mild. And that's what we always say, it's just a virus, don't worry about it. Well, COVID-19 is unlike anything we have ever seen. Just to give an example, when we have patients that come to the hospital with meningitis, meaning headaches and fever and confusion, we usually do a test on these patients in the ER. It's a blood test called CRP that measures inflammation. If the CRP is normal, you know it's a viral infection. If the CRP is high, it could be a dangerous bacterial infection. That's what we have known about viruses. Most viruses are unable to create inflammation, which is what makes you sick and even kills you. Well, COVID-19, I have never seen a virus in my life that creates such an inflammatory response that is what actually takes our patients' lives. There's nothing like it. And that's what we're dealing with. So John Atkinson asked me to talk a little bit about the phases of the illness. We've learned a lot about that in the last few months. So let me just say that briefly that most people who get COVID-19, they will go to the initial phase called the battle phase. Basically, you are at the mercy of the virus. The virus messes up with you. And usually what you feel during the first phase, the last 7 to 10 days, is fever, cough, body aches, GI symptoms, loss of smell or taste. It's interesting how variable the presentations are. Some people might have absolutely no symptoms, and some people might feel like the flu. Some people might just have nausea and vomiting or diarrhea. It's just incredible how different it presents on every individual. There's such a non-uniformity on the presentation of COVID-19, which makes it is fascinating for an infection specialist, because I would like to find a pattern where I can identify quickly who could have COVID-19. Well, COVID-19 can cause from no symptoms all the way to what looks like a flu-like illness on somebody. So that's all a viral response or viral phase. And that lasts probably 7-10 days. Most people, as we know already, especially the healthy and young ones, just get over it like nothing, like the flu. But there will be a small group of people maybe 20% or less, that will go into the second phase, which is we call the pulmonary phase. Basically, what's happened already there is that virus was able to create inflammation. Inflammation is a host response, is how we respond to that infection itself. So at that point, you develop inflammation on your lungs, and we call that pneumonia. So if you develop viral pneumonia, that's a phase 2, and usually lasts probably another week. For that phase, some people will get better on their own, and we know now that perhaps steroids can be helpful. Finally, some people can have a severe response, and the response to the viral infection is so intense, and it triggers a severe inflammatory response that basically patients are betrayed by their own immune system, and that's what takes these patients' lives. And we have learned about this syndrome that you probably have heard on internet, called cytokine release syndrome or cytokine storm syndrome, or something even worse than that. It's called thrombotic microangiopathy, which basically is the presence of small tiny clots on the blood vessels in the lungs, and people cannot oxygenate because of that reason. When you get to that point, there's really no treatment for that. So it's fascinating to see how COVID-19 you can take two people with the same health profile, and one of them will have just a loss of smell and taste for a couple of days and get over it. And another person who can be identical or very similar health-wise can go into the cytokine storm, into these microclots in the lung, and they spiral down to death without our ability to do much for them. We don't understand a lot about this virus. People thought that maybe the blood type had to do with it. Yeah, probably we see a little more on A positive blood type, but there's way more than that we're still learning. Certainly a tremendous challenge for us as we continue to learn. In terms of therapies, obviously, as I mentioned, if you take a look at these three phases, the viral phase, the first 7 to 10 days, then the pulmonary phase, and then some people will go into the third phase, which is the hyperinflammatory phase. And those are the ones that have a high poor outcomes and high death rates. And that infection can last actually weeks. Those patients that go into phase 3, they come to the hospital and they stay here for at least a month. If they survive, maybe much longer than that, 8 weeks. So it's in terms of treatment, there's been a lot of talk about medications. The only medication that has been proven so far to improve outcomes is steroids. That's the only medication that has been proven on studies to improve outcomes. But it's not a miracle cure either. To save one person with COVID-19 with the steroids, we have to treat 20 patients. That's on the regular floor. If the patient is on the ventilator, we have to treat 8 with the steroids to save one person. And that's the best we have right now. The rest is under study, including the famous hydroxychloroquine. Obviously, if you understand the phases of this infection, hydroxychloroquine, which actually acts like an antiviral, doesn't have a lot of effect on phase 3 or 2. It's too late for it. If it works, maybe it will be on phase 1. The problem is, how do you know who needs that? We know the majority of patients will survive this illness without any treatment. And number 2, we don't know if hydroxychloroquine is safe enough to take it at home without a heart monitor. So there's studies still going on outpatient therapy with hydroxychloroquine, and we will know that probably by the end of the year, if not January. So I'm still paying attention to those studies. When patients come on cytokine storm, we use steroids, and if they don't respond to steroids, we use something even stronger than steroids. The problem with using steroids and other anti-inflammatory medications is that they bring your immune system down. So as we save these patients' lives by stopping the cytokine storm, we make them immunocompromised and prone to infections. So it's a little bit of a messy intervention, there's a lot of collateral damage from using these strong anti-inflammatory medications. As an ID doctor, I always hated steroids because they bring the immune system down. And it's just ironic for me to use that more than anybody in the hospital now. And I have to be very careful on trying to protect our patients from overwhelming infections. So that's kind of where we are right now. And I have to thank the support of the hospital for all their treatments that I have brought to East Alabama Medical Center. For those patients who don't respond to basically anything, we're doing some studies with the rescue therapy with something called plasma exchange, basically washing the blood from these toxins that create these microplugs that make it impossible for these patients to breathe and exchange oxygen. So a very challenging infection. And again, I want to thank the support of my hospital. And for me, it's been a spring race since December 31st until the end of the first peak, which is April probably. And after that, we were in a marathon. So we went from a spring race to a marathon. And as we anticipate more peaks through this marathon, we have to do 3 races again and slow down and then do it again. And that's kind of where we are. Obviously, things are different now. That we didn't have ways to diagnose people. We didn't have enough PPE, and now we do for now. So, but just so you understand where we were back in April, we were having meetings daily with administration, with physicians, with anesthesiologists. Everything was shut down in this hospital, and we all were just focused on treating these patients with COVID-19 infection. We had several meetings where we were trying to decide with the ethics committee who can stay on the ventilator, who is going to be using a ventilator, who doesn't. That's a situation that a lot of other countries dealt with, like Italy, or like my home country, Peru, where we ran out of oxygen in Peru and people were dying at home. Sometimes, because we live in the best country in the world, sometimes we don't understand the significance of these infections because we live in a very powerful country. But back home, as I was watching my family deal with this infection, I understood very clearly the severity. Back home, patients will die at home in my country because there's no beds in the hospital. There's not even oxygen to treat them with. A lot of patients just die at home. Funeral homes were so busy that they had to burn bodies outside in the streets. That happened in a lot of developing countries. And we are in a different world right now. We live a little bit on a bubble, but here in America, however, I think it's important for me to say these things to you guys so you understand the monster we're dealing with. And I appreciate the support of the hospital and everybody in this community really has been amazing. I think that's all I have to say now.
Hi, my name is Brooke Bailey, and I'm the Director of Infection Prevention here. And I'm just going to really just add on to what Dr. Maldonado has spoken about and really look at preparation as well. And just go over just a few things in regards to infection prevention. So my title sort of says it all. Infection prevention, what can I do for my organization and even my community to help decrease the spread of whatever pathogen is emerging or could be detrimental to our patients in our hospital or even our community. So like Dr. Maldonado said, at the end of December, we were watching very closely what was going on in China. Again, having Auburn University, having other industrial major contributors in our surrounding areas, we knew that we could be impacted. And my job is to make sure that the staff are prepared to deal with that. The nurses, the respiratory therapists, our environmental service people, our techs, how are they going to be protected so that they can make sure that they take care of those patients safely? So we were meeting, like he said, every week, and then twice a week, and then every day, long before March the 15th or 16th arrived. Our staff know how to wear personal protective equipment in normal situations. So masks and gowns and gloves for different pathogens that we have seen and see daily. But this was different. Again, we didn't know a whole lot about the virus, and we wanted to make sure that our staff were prepared and they knew exactly what they needed to do and do it safely, so that when we did have that first case, then we were ready to do that and to take care of them. You know, at first we were preparing for a couple of patients. So we called it, what if we have one patient? What if we have two? And that quickly went to 10, and then 20, and then 40, and then 54. So again, we were adjusting and learning. We targeted those entry areas first. So we knew that our ER would be the most vulnerable at the very beginning. And so we made sure that they were prepared. Was the travel history appropriate? Were we asking where the travel was? What symptoms were there? And at first we thought it was that classic three, right? Fever, shortness of breath, and cough. And we quickly learned that changed and emerged as the virus became more prevalent. So preparation is always important. It's important as a healthcare organization. I'm sure it's important for you as businesses of the chamber, of how are you prepared, and that your staff are knowledgeable so that they can provide safe, effective care. So again, we started very looking at how we could take care of a small group of patients, and we quickly adapted. Having a very good leadership team helped us be able to do our job and do it effectively. So Laura's support, the support of all the other senior leaders, our physician staff, the community to be able to help us, to give us resources when we didn't know if we were going to have resources, helped us take care of those patients. And you have to have that. If you don't have a strong team, then the battle that you're fighting becomes very difficult. And we can say 150% that we did not have to deal with that. And we were able to do our jobs a lot better because of that. People in the chamber and the community, when we didn't think that we were going to be able to have hand sanitizer, when we didn't think we were be able to have disinfectants, masks, everyone contributed from many venues to be able to do that, so that we could take care of those patients safely, and we appreciate that. Transmission and wearing a mask. I really just want to sort of talk about that, and that's a hot topic and has been for many weeks. Mask work. We very quickly, even before the Centers for Disease Control really put forth for healthcare workers to wear a mask, we implemented that. We implemented that not just for the patients who we suspected to have COVID, but walking into our doors, a mask was required. And we quickly saw how the transmission decreased. Our healthcare workers weren't getting sick. We knew that there were situations where patients came into our hospital that we weren't aware. They didn't present with classic symptoms, and that transmission quickly decreased. So, I mean, Dr. Maldonado and I were talking, and he said, we need to do this, and we did it. And then a couple of weeks later, the CDC came out. So we continue to see, as the number of admissions came into our hospital, the number of staff that were taking care of our patients in our ICU, where they were the sickest of the sickest, and our staff were not getting sick. And it was because we were doing those infection control measures like wearing a mask and washing our hands and cleaning those surface areas. So we're here to tell you from the front lines, it makes a difference. And so, you know, the pleas and the communication that we've sent out to our community, it's because we've been here and we know that it works. And if those simple things that can be done can help decrease transmission and hopefully save someone's life. Other things in regards to transmission. So we know that droplet transmission is how the virus is spread most prevalently. So masks are very important. Surface areas do play a role, but it's a lesser role than wearing a mask. So that is really the most important. Hand hygiene, physically distancing from each other, are all important plays. We know that this virus is going to be here for a long time, and we're like Dr. Maldonado said, continuing to run the marathon. The other things that we have to think about, you know, flu season is fastly approaching. That's going to be difficult for healthcare, but we're better prepared. Testing was a huge issue in the very beginning, and if we had a test, we were waiting days to have results back. And because we have better testing methodologies, we're able to do that. We're able to get quick results, and we're able to be able to make a good diagnosis very quickly. Other things are in regards to contact tracing and what we do for exposed employees. It's very important for all levels. Our children are some of our children are going back to in-person school. Our businesses are back open, and we need that. Our economy needs that. It's very important for everyone to know what their health is like. You know, if there's a change in your health, then that should be something to really pay attention to. I was telling my son this morning before going to school, you need to pay attention to how you feel, because how you feel could impact others in the classroom and can significantly impact what's going to happen. So it's very important, and we teach our employees that. We screen our employees every day. So from March until now, they hear those same symptoms. Have you had these symptoms? We check their temperature. Now, I know that not every business can do that, but it's very important that that is communicated to employees, to your children, to know what to look for and to recognize it so that you don't expose others. Contact tracing is very important. So knowing where you are, who you are around, because a lot of people can spread this virus. We say about 48 hours before symptoms develop. These people can become or are contagious. So it's important to know, just because you feel perfectly fine, you may actually have that virus and you can spread to others. So knowing who you're around, being mindful of people that you're around that may be vulnerable. And we can tell you, a lot of people that are admitted to the hospital who are very sick have been around children and kids who may not develop signs and symptoms or have classic symptoms, and they acquired the virus that way. So all of us just have to be very mindful outside of our normal household, how we interact with people, and if we do, that we do it safely. And what is the impact if I myself were around someone that is vulnerable? It could be very detrimental. So that is very important. Testing is another topic also that I wanted to bring up. There are several different tests out there, and most tests have what's called emergency use authorization from the FDA because it's so new. The gold standard of testing is called a PCR, and then there's another test called an antigen. Those are the two types of tests that should be used for diagnostic. and diagnosis of the virus at this time. There are a lot of other different types of tests. There's antibody tests and things like that, that in the future, that can be something that is of impact. And those antibody tests can be used to determine, for example, the prevalence within our community. Have you had the virus in the past, based on what's going on? But you really need to have an antigen or a PCR to truly diagnose appropriately. And even those are not always 100%. So if a patient or a person gets tested and is negative, you also really have to look at what are their symptoms? How do they feel? So even though a test is negative, a person needs to make sure that they recover from that illness before coming back to work, going back to school. Nothing is ever 100%. So that's just sort of a nutshell. The other thing is I really want to mention is, again, how important the support that we've had from so many people, and from Laura and our administration. I want to mention the sick line too. You know, at the very beginning, before we had our first hospitalization, we wanted to know where that first case was, because we knew that people would pay attention once we had someone identified in our community. And so we quickly established that sick line, and we tested thousands and thousands, you know, I think probably 3,000 people so far. But that enabled us to know what was going on in our community, and for us to be able to reach out to you, to be able to be prepared. So very early, that was something that was very important to us. And because of you in the community, we were able to get on the media with our mayors, with Mayor Fuller and Mayor Andrus and Dr. Kim and Dr. Maldonado, and really reach out and have people prepared. So that was very important as well. Again, we want to thank you for your time. We want to thank you for your continued support. We've got a long road still ahead of us, but every single person can make a difference. And so we just appreciate all of that.
Okay, hey, me again. I just want to again echo, especially thank Dr. Maldonado and Brooke for covering all that they have. They have really been heroes. I know there's some questions, and I alluded to this at the beginning. We are continuing to operate in both worlds. So again, we continue to do what routine, urgent, elective, needed things, as well as take care of COVID. And our hope is that we can continue to do that now that we have better access to things like PPE and testing and equipment to prepare us. We had a question, will this slow down things that we had in the works, plans we had for opening other facilities? And the answer to that is no. Things are continuing as normal. So we really have to find unique ways to balance what we do every day. We have to plan for tomorrow and the following year and the following year and make those changes. So we have a property project going on right now in Auburn. It's located off of Sheridan up at the research park. And that's where we'll have a freestanding emergency department, an ambulatory surgery center, a new imaging center. All that is still in the works. So we are continuing business as usual while we live in this COVID world. That will open in April of this year. And so we're really excited about that. So one last thing I'd really like to say, we've all sort of touched on. I want to thank you again for your support. You've fed us, you've prayed with us, for us, you've supported our staff. Please continue that. I will tell you, the staff here are they are true heroes. They do a great job. They get tired, they think they've just done a great job, and things have slowed down, and here it comes again, and it's very emotional for that staff. They're taking care of their family and their friends, co-workers, people they love in the community, and so it's taxing and it's hard. So this is for real. So again, I'll be quiet with that, and I want to thank you, and I just turn it back over to you guys, and thank you for all you do to support us.
Thank you so much. I have so many pages of notes. I appreciate you guys sharing and giving us honest information that we can take back to our businesses, and our families, and our community. And we appreciate the preparation that you made prior to it really coming to our community that put us in a good place. But we also appreciate so much you adjusting to what you're learning as it's happening, because it feels like that's really helping us. The more you know, the more you can share with us. And we appreciate that open dialogue that you have with us in our community to help us be prepared and help you as little as we can. But we do support you. We appreciate every level of employee that's there, and we wish we could take it away from you, but we appreciate y'all standing in the gap for us and being those heroes that you mentioned for sure. If we get any other questions that might come from this, we certainly will share them with John and see it, just so you can have input, from the business community and see where they might be approaching certain questions. But we thank you for your time, and certainly I know I mentioned earlier we were going to go quickly to Clay Lane. We certainly appreciate Mid-South Bank's investment in the chamber, but Clay, we did want to give you a few minutes as the market president for Mid-South Bank. We appreciate you being with us today, but we wanted to turn it to you quickly just for you to say a few remarks as well.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. And I'd also like to thank the chamber staff, the chamber board of directors, and all the attendees, and especially the speakers. I'll echo what Anna said. I know you guys, it's a crazy time, and we hear a lot of things on the news every day, and it's nice to hear it coming from local people that we feel like we can trust. I mean, to me, you're more of a real person than a news anchor. So I appreciate that, and thank you guys for all that you do and that you've done over the last several months. So it's kind of hard to follow up those guys they're the headline, obviously, but just wanted to give you guys a brief history of Mid-South Bank. We're a community bank founded over 100 years ago. We have offices located throughout Southeast Alabama. I think Auburn is our furthest north that we go, and then in the Panhandle of Florida. We've been in Auburn and Lee County for since 2007, and our office, we have one location currently in Lee County, and it is on Glen Avenue, just down from the chamber office, about halfway between the chamber and Acre. We do our best every day. Like I said, we're a community bank. We're involved in the communities that we're located in, and we believe in personal customer service. We do our best to provide the best service that we can to our clients using technology, products, and services that are cutting edge. And I fully believe, and the bank does too, in providing, like I said, very personal service to people. That's what we do. We're community bankers. So we want to be involved in the community. We want people to be able to trust us and know that we've got their best interest in heart, and we've got the communities we're involved in in heart. So one thing we like to say around here is, and that our team promises, is that we promise to be the friendliest and most helpful bank in town. So I appreciate, again, thank you guys for taking the time and the effort and the energy to attend this. Again, thank you to the speakers and to all the chamber folks. You guys do a great job over there as well. And I hope to see you guys soon. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And thank you to each of you for joining us today. Hope you have a wonderful day. We hope you will remember to help keep Auburn open by following those protocols of wearing the mask, socially distancing, and having good hand hygiene. And if the Chamber can help you in any way, we hope you won't hesitate to reach out to us because we're here for you. Have a great day.